So to start off this video, I got a quick 3-minute clip just to showcase a concept around Lilo causing an uproar. This is the new legendary from Ruby in Reign of Jafar set 8. And I did review this card and I said, you know, I think it's pretty decent, but I don't really see being able to play it for free by playing 3 actions in a turn coming up all too much unless you build a deck around it. Well, when you do end up building a deck around it, which is what you see here, and we're going to go over the deck list at around the 3-minute mark, you can do some insane stuff. The ceiling for this legendary is actually quite insane, and I definitely didn't consider it when I was initially looking at it. And the reason for that is because you can, if you have 2 Lilos in the hand, or you have a Lilo and like a snake or a fox to bounce that Lilo on board back, as long as you fulfill the condition of playing the 3 actions in the turn, you can play all 3 Lilos in your hand for free, all 4 if you have all 4. If you end up bouncing one back, you can replay it again for free. So there are some interesting interactions where, like, I can play Fox, bounce back the Lilo after it challenged request. I've already played 3 actions, right, or sang 3 actions or songs in a turn. So my Fox can then challenge, then I play the Lilo again, ready up the Fox that I just played, challenge again, and I take out 3 characters with just a Lilo and a Fox, right? And they're big bodies, they're all 4 strength, they can take out everything. And then in a combination like this, you can see the readying abilities of things like Fan the Flames, bouncing with Befuddle, efficient songs like Friends on the Other Side, Bosses on a Roll, this is my family. We'll cover the deck list and go over these in a second. But these are all cards that help you scry and know what's on top of your deck, which means that your Bruno can proc for free, get the card advantage, the card off the top of the deck here. As you can see, I called Shutterblock Followers because I was able to notice what was on top of the deck. And if I had cards to ready, which the Lilo does, so you can see the scrying, songs, and actions feed into the 3 actions I need for the turn for Lilo, which then feed into comboing with the Bruno to ready it up, which then feed into getting more card advantage, and you just snowball your way through that. Like, you're generating a ton of lore, so you're keeping up with your opponent. Like, you don't care what your opponent is developing because they're not winning the game in like a turn or 2 like you are. If you get this setup going, right? You're playing towards a setup. Even if your Bruno gets outed, that's fine. You can still do some of the stuff I was just explaining, like Lilo cycling to clear boards and put a lot of pressure on, because this thing coming down for free, we know the power of Scrooge McDuck had last set, right? This is just like that. So if you are able to curate your hand to have those 3 efficient actions and or songs, and then just load up the board with Lilos and clear the board, challenge stuff up, you know, bounce stuff back, re-ready stuff up, you can set up a pretty wide, like, demanding board, like demanding as in it demands an answer, otherwise you're questing for like 10 next turn, because these Lilos quest for 2, and as you can see, 3 in my hand here. If I set this up so that I would have had 3 actions that I could have played, like, you know, 1, 2, and 3 cost actions or something, all these Lilos would come down. Whatever I challenge, I re-ready up my own characters, whatever survived, or I quest out, I re-ready them up so they can all quest again next turn, and I just win the game. So pretty insane stuff. Let's go ahead and look at this deck list as a concept and break it down. So here's an example of a list that I was messing around with. I don't think it's optimal by any means, but as you can see here, it is very cost effective, very low cost, very easy to play on curve, but you are playing a number of 1 and 2 drop cards that you generally don't want to play until you have your combo pieces up. So you do want to hopefully see characters in your opening and reserve the setup, like I was saying, for, like, I've got a Befuddle, I've got my Flower set up with my 1 drop that maybe I can bounce back with the Befuddle. This counts as an action towards the Lilo, and it bounces back my Diablo, which I can replay for 1 to trigger the Flower to look at the top of the deck, and I've already got my Bruno set up. And like you saw in that match, even if you didn't get your Bruno set up, you can definitely still proc some insane Lilo combos. So this one is a bounce deck, Madam Mim Fox, Madam Mim Snake. You're not caring what your opponent is doing generally, because you're just going to power through that, or be able to keep up with them with the Bruno burn for 3. This card is pretty insane, simply because not only do you get the card if you name it correctly, but you gain 3 lore. So what you can do is, like, proc the ability. Even if you miss, you know what the card is. It stays on top of your deck. Ready this card up with the Lilo, Fan the Flames, the LeFou, etc. Proc it again and get the card to your hand. A little bit less efficient than knowing what it is off of cards like the Flower here. Whenever you play another character, look at the top card of your deck, put it on either the top or bottom of your deck. So this card can filter your deck a little bit. But yeah, this card sets up with the Bruno. right? Obviously, so you know what's on top of your deck, so you're calling it correctly with the Bruno. You can also do bosses on a roll, so you know the next several cards in a row. This is a very easy way to just line up a number of hits. This is a song, Friends is a song, Family is a song, Reflection is a song. All of these cards, well, not all, but like the Reflection and bosses on a roll scry set up the top of your deck. Family and Friends are draw cards, so you can facilitate, singing, so that you get free value off of the contribution towards the 3 or more actions in the turn. And then you finish it up with a couple of very efficient, Befuddle, Fan the Flames, This Is My Family. Hard casting, these guys don't really matter because they're very low cost. And then once you fulfill the condition of the 3 actions cast in a turn, hopefully you have at least 2 Lilos in rotation, which again shouldn't be hard since you're drawing and or scrying cards through your deck. So finding at least 2 Lilos should be good, or a Lilo and a Fox, or 2 Lilos and a Fox and or Snake, and then you just start cycling, right? So if you've sang the more expensive cards like the Friends and the Bosses on a roll, and maybe you've hard cast like these 2 here, you should still have at least 4 ink, 3 or 4 ink available, which is still going to allow you to play the Lilo for free. Get the ready up on the Bruno, let's say. You scryed, you know what's on top of your deck. Get the card advantage, burn for the 3 lore. Play the Fox, bounce back the Lilo. Replay the Lilo for free because you've already fulfilled the condition of playing the 3 actions. So play this again, and then ready up the Bruno again. So with a Fox and a Lilo, if you've procced the 3 actions in a turn and you have the Bruno on field, you're able to proc Bruno once, play the Lilo for free, proc it again, play the Fox, bounce back to Lilo, play the Lilo for free, proc the Bruno again, and again, because you set up your cards with the top 3 off Reflection, let's say, or top 5 off of Bosses on a roll, you're going to be hitting on this Bruno every time. And even better, if you have the Flower, even if you didn't see the Reflection and or Bosses on a roll, if you had the Flower set up survive on the board, whenever you replay that Lilo, you're scrying one and you're looking at the top card of your deck anyways. So this is a pretty insane like deck, honestly. Again, it's a combo oriented deck, so if your opponent blows out your Bruno, they like Zeus it or Dragonfire or whatever it is a 3/3, right? So it survives Storm Rage and Brawls and things like that, which is great. Big Sisus, whatnot. So is the Flower, so they're a little bit harder to deal with, but they are still, key combo pieces that you need to see on board. Again, you can just have these things sit there in a readied state. The Bruno has evasive, so like it's going to be hard to interact with when it is exerted anyways, but like you just sit there in an exerted state, or sorry, a readied state. You don't care if your opponent's developing a wide board and questing for like 2 here and 4 here next turn and then 6, and they're now up to 12. You're like, that's fine because I'm maybe slowly chipping away at lore myself, or you could be challenging their board a little bit and slowing them down, but you're just going for the blowout play. What I just described to you with like the Bruno on board with either and the Lilo and like Fox or Snake in hand, and then you trigger. If you have more than 1 Lilo, you guys realize how many times you trigger the Bruno, and then plus the cycle, right? You play it, you bounce it, you play it, and then obviously you proc the Bruno once for like it's ready at the start of your turn. Lilo readies it up, that's 2. Fox, bounce it, replay Lilo for free, that's 3. If you have a second Lilo, that's 4. That's 12 lore that you can gain in a single turn off this Bruno, right? Plus you gain plus 4 cards off it, and you've developed 1 to 2 Lilos, and you've cleaned up a board a little bit with like Fox. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. So yeah, this is the list. 4 Chernobyls, 4 Diablo. Again, just efficient 1-cost characters. You're usually questing and banishing with Diablo to, again, siphon through your deck. With the Chernobyl followers. The Diablo is the card that you probably want to like quest with, bounce back with Befuddle, or bounce back your opponent's card with Befuddle, right? You can slow them down too. Bounce back that Mr. Smee, bounce back whatever, and just slow them down too. That's really good. And you can continue to quest out with your Diablo. You do want to again save your key interaction, so you want to build up to 3 songs and or actions in your hand, so that you're like, okay, I've got the 3 actions, I've got my 1 to 2 Lilos and or Fox and whatnot. I got the setup, let me go. It's actually not as hard as it sounds to pull off. It's quite crazy, and you can come back from like an insane deficit and just win the game. It's pretty crazy. Again, a lot of testing needs to be done, but it is a pretty cool concept. Once people know a lot more about this, maybe it becomes way less effective, but regardless, it's like whether or not you go towards the Bruno play, you're still playing the very efficient Amethyst cards, and you're playing pretty good Ruby cards that ready up cards are good, right? So like the LeFous, the Lilos, on 2, Madam Mim Snake, LeFou, on 3, Flower and Fox, on 4, Bruno and Rabbit, and then on 5, just the Lilo. Your actions are the 3 Befuddles, the 4 Fan the Flames. You could probably, I mean, I think you do want to keep this at 4, because if you have like 2 Fan the Flames and the Bruno up, I mean, it's the same thing as a Lilo, right? As long as you've been able to scry the deck with the Flower and or Boss and or Reflection, you're good. 4 Brawls, you probably can cut one of these and go for a Reflection. Like, this counts towards a Lilo, but obviously you have to hard cast this, so hard casting it for 3 doesn't feel great. But, you know, if your combos gets messed up, Brawl could help you stall out the game a little bit more until you get something set up and or able to contest the board. And like I said, if you develop like 2 or 3 of these Lilos, these things are questing for 2. So, like, you know, even if you don't get the big combo off, if you develop 2 Lilos, a Fox to clear up the board a little bit, you've still got the Flower, let's say, maybe some of these lower cards, like, you've still got a pretty sizable board, and you can do a lot of damage, right? You can quest out for a lot, and you know, these are big bodies that can be difficult to out, right? Or at least be traded into. As for the songs, like I said, you could go probably -1 Brawl, +1 Reflection. This is a very efficient song and does exactly what you need it to. Like, these top 3 cards turn into 9 lore and +3 to your hand, right? Like, you guys understand that? Like, once you know what they are, it's pretty crazy. This is My Family. Again, just a card that is efficient. You gain a lore and you draw a card, but it's an action that counts towards the Lilo ability. I think you do want to play this, but you know, the draw actually could mess you up. Like, if you hard cast this for 2 and you draw the card that like you knew was on top, obviously then you're gonna have to like figure out what's on top again. So play another character so that the Flower triggers, or you play this last. Like, this card can be a little weird, but it only costs 2, so like by turns 5, 6, when you're actually setting up the combo, you should be okay to like not have this mess things up. Singing Friends is always good too. Or, you know, you can even hard cast it, because if you are able to, let's say, like, see what's on the top of the deck, like, say you play a Diablo and then you proc the Flower, and you're like, oh, there's a Bosses on a Roll on top of the deck. You can be like, sing Friends with Flower, get the Bosses on a Roll, hard cast the Bosses on a Roll. Then you know the top 5 cards of your deck, right? Then you proc Bruno, pick up the card. Hopefully it's an efficient 1-cost action or something. You play it. Maybe it's a Fan of the Flames. You ready up the Bruno. You know what the next card is because of Boss. And by that point, you've played Friends, you've played Boss, right, to get the top. And then you've proc the Bruno, so you got the card to hand, which is card advantage. This is the 3rd card. And then if you have a Lilo in hand, guess what? I already readied up this Bruno off of Fan the Flames, proc it again, get the card, play the Lilo for free, ready up the Bruno. I know what the top 5 are. Proc it again, get the card, get the lore, right? This is like 9 lore just from that. So the setups that you can do with this and the ceiling is quite insane. And then just the looping, like I said, even if you didn't have the Bruno, playing Fox, bouncing back Lilo, recasting the Lilo to ready up the Fox to challenge again, can clear boards out. Like, it's pretty cool what you can do with the new Lilo here. Of course, you can utilize her in like higher end packages. Obviously, this one is focused around the Bruno combo, but it's a pretty cool concept and something that might be worth trying out. Only $14, so this deck is like super cheap. No way. I didn't even realize that. I think this card's gonna go up though. I think the combo potential for this thing is crazy. It's probably the legendary with the highest ceiling. I think the Mari is probably the best standalone, similar to what Beast Tragic Hero was when it came out in Rise of the Floodborn. Once people realized, like, oh yeah, this card, I don't know why it's selling for 25. It should be like, well, what did it go up to? Like 60, $70 Canadian. It obviously has come down quite a bit since then. But yeah, I remember that card just like hitting insane amounts of money. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And steel wasn't even, it was a tier 0 format with Ruby Amethyst. Why was the steel card going up in price? This is a Ruby card. That should tell you a lot right there, right? Ruby has always been a consistent top meta threat in the format, and anything that Ruby gets is good. That's generic, and this is kind of generic, is going to be insane. I do want to experiment with this card in other builds. But yeah, this one is the immediate one that like you're able to like just play a lot of the efficient cards that combo well, because these are the lower cost cards that, you know, you don't just get no value off of. Like, you don't just want to play a Befuddle just to like, oh, maybe I can proc a Lilo with it. Like, no, this card actually has utility in like bouncing back your 1 costs or even like your LeFous and then playing them to re-ready. I didn't even mention that. Like, you can Befuddle your LeFou and then play it again to re-ready your Bruno. So you get a re-ready, a free re-ready, and you've contributed an action towards the turn, right? So yeah, an insane combo deck. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I mentioned this, and I apologize if I didn't because I don't want to mention it at the end, but this is not my idea. I saw this from somebody on the Southside Gaming stream. I'll make sure I post it in the description and probably in the comments just so it's full transparency. So yeah, I'm not claiming creating this concept. I saw like a match quickly when I was like eating my lunch of somebody playing this, and I was like, holy crap, this is cool. And then I just went, you know, afterwards and try to cook something up in the lab and test out a few quick things. And so that's how I came up with this. So yeah, credit where credit is due. I'm sorry if I don't remember the name, but it was, I know it was from the Southside Gaming stream. And they were testing against Chernadog, and they were cooking them. Not entirely. I mean, I think the guy's name was Jack on Chernadog, who's a pretty good player from what I understand. He was doing a lot of cool stuff with the new cards with Chernadog as well. But obviously the hype is going to be with some of these new combo pieces. So again, I didn't catch much of it, but I just caught like basically you're doing the multiple Lilo things with the Brunos, and then it's pretty easy to piece it together from there. So my list is probably not exactly the same as theirs. I can't believe I forgot to mention that at the start of the video, but like I said, I will make sure it's in the description and give credit where credit is due. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you again for watching. If you made it this far, Quantum is out.